educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate you tuning in today. We have the CEO and founder of Willity. After 20 plus years leading teams, hiring, training, and managing over 1,000 employees and advising over 300 entrepreneurs, leaders, and executives, he started his organization to help overwhelmed leaders get their businesses and lives back on track by streamlining their operations and aligning their behaviors. He focused on three key areas: the mechanics of their schedule and operations, their leadership skill sets, and honing their identity and personal superpowers as a leader. And some of us, we're not sure we have superpowers, especially when we start getting into this place and we're in a chaotic space. It seems overwhelming. And I am happy to have this individual here to talk to us about how to manage that chaotic space. Thank you very much for listening. I bring Eric Williams to the show. Eric, thank you very much for coming on.
Maurice, great to be here. Looking forward to talking with you about this today.
Sure, no problem. So, Eric, we talked about in the green room the overwhelmed entrepreneur, and a lot of times, a lot of things are going on, and it's hard for us because things are moving so fast. How do we regain control in this chaotic space as we're starting out?
Yeah, that's the name of the game here. And usually where this shows up, if you are in that hustle stage early on in your business, you're doing everything possible to get early traction, get that first customer, the first couple customers, the first client. That's great. Businesses take a lot of work, right? This isn't about making it's building a business is not easy, but it doesn't have to be so hard at a certain point in your business when you really need to transition from doing everything yourself and being in that grind, being in the hustle, to building a business, a system that gets that outcome for consistently and with quality to your clients and customers. And that transition is where a lot of people get stuck and where a lot of folks get overwhelmed. It doesn't mean you can't get overwhelmed and overworked at different parts of the puzzle, but really where I see it come to the most fruition and where it's most dangerous is in that you've gotten traction, but you're not big enough and robust enough, and you need to be able to figure out how to navigate that phase. And what it really comes down to, I think your question was about how to recognize it, right? What does that look like for you? And it could be that you've started spending one too many nights at the office, not seeing your kids. Maybe you're coming home at midnight, and it's been weeks really since you've seen your kids. It could be that your relationship with your spouse is on the rocks because you're never home. And when you're home, you're not present. It's really when your brain starts to be too far out of the other things in your life that are important. It doesn't mean you don't have to go through periods where you need to hustle, where you need to get things going. It's just that if you live there for too long, that's where you can lead to burnout, especially if you don't have an exit plan, not for the business, but an exit plan for that stage. If you're just stuck in dealing with emergency after emergency, don't feel like you're really able to keep your head above water, you're barely treading water. Those are some of the really red flags about needing to do something different, needing to make a change, recognizing that what you've done, your spirit, your identity that's built you to that point, isn't necessarily what's going to get you to the next stage of your business. And so that's, I think at the end of the day, when I think about folks that I've talked to, because it's serious when they're at this stage, because different parts of their life can really fall apart, and their business is also kind of on the verge of falling apart. So it's a really dangerous place for people to be. And getting out of it requires, number one, just commitment to getting it solved. The resolve to say, enough's enough, I need to figure out what to do next. And that's where working with an expert or just focusing on it yourself is really where the value is. Just, even if it's like 3 hours, 5 hours a week that you're able to carve out to work on building the efficiency and the systems in your business, that's where you'll start to dig yourself out of the hole.
So Eric, I'm starting out my business, and everyone I spoke to don't necessarily believe in the vision that I'm putting out there. So
Yeah.
now I only have myself to rely on to move this vision forward. So how do I get out of that if that's the only thing that I have? Like I feel like I'm my only support system. The kids are too young, and so they don't necessarily understand. Our spouse, as you stated, they might have other ventures and other aspirations that do not necessarily align with me as an entrepreneur. So I don't have that support, at least in my home,
Mhm.
and or my ancillary family members and friends. So how do I balance that if I don't have that support?
Protecting your mindset while you're building your business is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't get it. People who aren't entrepreneurs themselves, who haven't built a business, like to offer advice. They like to offer the perspectives. But at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it can be quite detrimental to
Mhm.
actually building your business, right? Because I don't know if you've had this experience, Maurice, but people who don't get it don't get it, and there's
Mhm.
a lot of people who will give unsolicited advice about what you
Yes.
should do, what the market looks like, what business should look like, and so that's why you need to protect that. And in
Mhm.
that case, it could be that you need to be solo, but it could be that
Mhm.
you need to find peers in your industry or other
Mhm.
entrepreneurs doing something similar. Uh, Building momentum in your business, celebrating your wins, celebrating positive
Mhm.
movement. There are a lot of psychological underpinnings. Building a
Mhm.
business isn't complicated. I'm not saying it's easy. It's just
Right.
that people have been doing this for years before there was any tools and technology.
Right.
Before there was AI, before all this stuff, people have been building successful businesses, on clay tablets back in the day. You know, People have been doing it, but what's challenging in this day and age is just keeping your brain in the right space. That's why it's
Mhm.
one of my three pillars of the work that we do, because while the mechanics of building a business feel like the most complicated thing, the
Mhm.
human brain is actually the entrepreneur's mindset and approach to their business. That's the whole ball game. The
Mm.
business mechanics are the easy part to solve. The brain is the harder part to solve. And that's why protect getting kind of building your network, building your who you're engaging with, who your
Mhm.
peers are, so you can bounce ideas off of them, so you can hold each other accountable. Having somebody else like a coach or consultant that can help
Mhm.
you continue to move forward, recognize your wins, recognize your forward motion, because that's the whole ball game. Is just keeping your brain focused on what's the most important things you need to do in your business.
So you're talking about, celebrating myself. You mentioned that, but unfortunately, as you stated, it's too chaotic. I'm
Yeah.
getting overwhelmed, and it's very hard for us to see as entrepreneurs those little wins. We don't understand. Maybe just like, and I made this statement the other day. I know it's not business related per se, but just waking up and making my bed can be a win. you
Yeah.
know, so maybe picking up that pencil that one day and writing out 3 sentences or 4 sentences that pertains to the business could be a win for that particular day. But it
Yeah.
seems so small. Why should I celebrate something so small and what can appear to be so insignificant in the process?
Yeah. Well, you're picking up on the subtle psychology that goes into human behavior, right? And that's why we
Hmm.
have things like mindfulness practices
Hmm.
and other thing gratitude. Like if you've heard these things and have kind of brushed them off as, oh, that's just woo woo. I don't need to focus. I don't need to think about it. Um, there are things that your brain does. What your brain focuses on. If you think about building habits
Hmm.
in your life, what you choose to focus on, when you get overwhelmed, there's a tendency to kind of look inwards
Hmm.
and be more self-critical. This isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, and that's training our brain to look for what's not working.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes we want to problem solve and figure out what to do about it, but you can't kind of mull on it for
Hmm.
too long,
Hmm.
because that's going to keep you looking. Like when you're looking for problems, you'll
Right.
continue to find problems,
Hmm.
right? And so if you're looking for successes and things that are working, that's what gives you the juice and the energy to keep moving forward. And so that's why even just celebrating small wins helps keep you focused on the forward momentum. So even saying, I'm grateful this morning, I have a house, I have a
Hmm.
family, if you have a family, I have my business is still running today, and so I'm going to count that as a win.
Right.
I have abundance in the amount of clients that are making me feel overwhelmed, but I have an abundance of revenue coming in the door. I need to figure out how to manage this better, right? There's a way to frame how you're thinking about it so that you're saying, I do have a lot and I need to problem solve around, a couple small things. It helps you recognize all of the things that are working and then say, okay, well, this area of the business is not working, instead of catastrophizing and saying, oh, nothing's working, right? If you're overwhelmed, you might say, well, everything is messed up. Everything's not working. I need to just, let my business go, right? That's
Right.
that sort of feeling that happens when you're feeling overwhelmed and overworked.
Yeah. So I am working my 9 to 5, and I'm trying, keyword trying, to do this business, and it's not working out. And I believe that I just want to give up today, Eric, because I am not creating the momentum that I imagined. And I am so caught up in what I believe are my competitors, because they're living the life. They're taking pictures on yachts and in restaurants, and and saying, "Hey, here's all the inventory I just received that's about to be shipped out," and I'm not in the same place, Eric. So, Eric, should I give up today?
I have a couple thoughts. When you're building your business, I think give yourself some grace. It's not always going to be a straight line, a straight upward trajectory. There's going to be days that suck. There's going to be days where you just want to, sit around and do nothing. And I say give yourself some grace. If you need a day to collect your thoughts, if you need a day to just, unplug, do that. At the end of the day, as I said, earlier in our conversation, we were talking about mindset and your approach. Your brain is what's driving this business, especially at the early stage. Ideally, later on in your business, what you've replicated from your brain into the systems and processes and practices in your businesses are what driving the business forward, because you've built a process that gets those outcomes. But early on, you are your business, and so you need to protect your own brain, your own mindset as you go through this. So that I would say, give yourself some grace. Number one, it's a long road, but then staying consistent in your approach to your goals. Sometimes you don't know whether there was 10 or 15 years that went into that person having that level of success. Comparing yourself to others. Oh, I forget who the quote is, but comparison is the thief of joy. Right. So that one strikes me too. And why, when I'm working on my business and when I'm working with clients on their businesses, they express very similar things where they're saying, I'm building this business. There's a competitor on the other side of town who, is doing, $10 million in revenue, $50 million in revenue, and I'm still stuck at one or around that. And I know that there's business to be had in my area, because I keep on, I have people keep reaching out to me and I have to turn them down, but I just don't have time to move beyond that. And that's where, if you're comparing, it's okay to say, and I think when we're talking about building a resilient, strong mindset around your business, you can look at those competitors and say, well, if they did it, I can do it too. It's a matter of figuring out how. One of my favorite analogies is about trying to bake a cake when you don't have a recipe, right? And so this is related to looking at competitors and saying, I'm just going to watch what they do and do that myself. And that's how I'll achieve success. You don't know how much went into it. You don't know if they actually had a lot of funding that they had before going into it that they've been able to put towards it, or if they had a strong network. You don't know what the kind of secret sauce is that accelerated their progress through this, or it could have just been, a lucky break in there. You don't know what's going on. It's kind of like baking cake. Let's say you go to a bakery and you have the most delicious piece of cake you've ever had, right? And then you say, well, I want to make it at home. How difficult is it going to be to recreate that recipe? You might conceptually know, well, cakes have flour, they have eggs, they have sugar, they have butter. or some kind of oil, but you have no idea that, there's so many baked treats that are so different based on
Right.
how you're calibrating these ingredients. And so it's almost impossible to recreate that perfect cake just from
Mm-hmm.
eating it, even though you can taste it, you can sense it, you can smell it, you can take it up, you can look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to recreate it. And so that's why it's really hard to look at competitors and try to
Mm-hmm.
replicate their success unless you know the secret sauce that's going in behind the scenes.
So Eric, I mean, they're put out this image, right? That they're making it. So Eric, I'm really thinking about, should I fake it to make it? Like, should I recreate some of the things that they're doing, or should I just be genuine and be myself and move forward at my own pace?
So again, I have a couple ways I want to break this down. Great question, Maurice. So the fake it till you make it, there's a little bit of truth in there. It doesn't mean you have to be public about it. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
where it's giving me pause. Your brain needs to be operating from a place where you already are in that successful place. How
Mm-hmm.
would you be making decisions about investing in your business, about investing in supporting your business, about what you choose to focus on every
Mm-hmm.
day, what you choose to focus on when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed at night?
Mm-hmm.
How does your day look? What are you prioritizing? What's the really important piece of the puzzle? So if you are running a $50 million company, $100 million company, how would you be acting? How would you be behaving? How would you be focusing on the work, the most important things you need to do every day, right? There's an element of truth in there
Mm-hmm.
when you're building your business. Even when you're starting out,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean you're not operating from a place of reality.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, still in the very early stages, don't have a lot of revenue, it doesn't mean you can go out and, swing wildly at the problem like you might be able to with a much larger company. But it's just about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of CEO are you? What kind of founder are you bringing to the table each and every day to solve this problem? Are you operating from a CEO that's making, $10,000 a year, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year? Or are you operating from the next level? And that's why we
Mm-hmm.
work on identity so much
Mm-hmm.
with the entrepreneurs I work with, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time they've kind of gotten to the extent of where they can function under the kind of identity that built the early stages of their business, and they need to
Mm-hmm.
shift up a level in terms of their CEO identity. And sometimes there's just baggage that we carry.
Mm-hmm.
Lack, limitations, things that haven't gone our way in the past. And those things can create just baggage that slows us down through the process. And so when I think about the CEO identity that you need to bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
that's what comes to mind. So it's sort of a fake it till you make it, but you have to really
Right.
put those underpinnings in your brain that I can do this. If they can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I have these assets working for me. I have this skill set. I have this amount of I have this passion for this to make this a reality, and the commitment to show up as that person every
Mm-hmm.
day in pursuit of this goal. It doesn't mean, and as I said, you don't know what went in to make that other person. You don't even know
Right.
if that other person's successful just
Right.
because they're posting on social media. They might be at your same level and they might be faking it
Right.
publicly and still not be there. And so it's more important that you are who you are and
Mm-hmm.
who you need to be. A version of you that is successful, that is the level of CEO that you aspire to be. How do you show up? How do you operate from that place? Would you be spending time posting on social media
Mm-hmm.
about the fake it till you make it? Or would you be hitting the phones looking for that first client?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be, hustling to bring in that new deal that you've been working on? Right. So how would you be focusing your time? How would you be spending your time if you are the person that you aspire to be?
So, Eric, I'm not sure. I like what you're saying. And here's what I'm saying. Eric, you're saying that I've been faking it for such a long time, and I have to be accountable to find my identity. Like, I have to be responsible to understand who I am at the core. So, because I'm gonna be honest with you, Eric, I've been faking it for a long time, and I'm not sure who I am today. So, but here's the reality. I didn't realize how much stress it was being this fake individual. So how can I turn the corner, Eric? Like, I hate to admit to you that I've been faking it for such a long time and I really don't know who I am. So how can I turn the corner?
Yeah. When you think about, that's a very interesting question. So let me think about this for a second. So, yeah, if you don't know that's part of the work that we do. And,
Right.
and this is why it's a little bit, I'm trying to think through, part of how we kind of back off the public persona.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be honest, there's never only just one version of you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mm-hmm. There's a version of you that you are with your spouse, a version of you that you are with your kids. There's a version of you when you're at work. There's a version of you as an entrepreneur. And so it doesn't have to be, and I don't mean to say this as there's not kind of the values that you're bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's okay to have different versions of yourself.
Mm.
The one that shows up in different roles, the one that shows up for your kids when they're having, might be having issues at school, you need to help them through. And so all of these things are part of who you are. It doesn't mean it's not authentic. They're all authentic versions of you, but versions of you that need to show up in different ways in different situations. And so one of the great things about humans is that we can kind of pick what we want. Just because you are a certain way, have been a certain way, have had certain habits and behaviors. I'm not saying it's easy to change habits and behaviors, but today you can choose to do something different. You can choose to show up as a different version of yourself. You can identify what values you want to bring to the table today that are part of your, let's say, your core identity, the things that you value in life, the things that you value about serving your customers and clients well, putting out good service and good products in the world, really showing up with the value that you bring to the table, and the personal values. Just because we're talking about impact and showing up as yourself and having that impact in the world doesn't mean that you can't also value financial abundance, that you can't also value having flexible time in your life so that you can spend with your kids and your family, right? You can bring those values to the table. And so part of it is thinking through, what are my top 3 values, top 5 values? What do I want? And when we think about your CEO identity and where you need your next level of CEO identity, what you're working towards, who you are, who you need to be to build your business into that next stage, you can kind of pick and choose. If we recognize that we're all kind of a multitude of identities, and we can kind of code shift or shift our identity throughout the day for different purposes, you can build that identity, build the identity that you need to be, right? There's another theory about, multiple universes and multiple versions of yourself. And if there's multiple realities, then there's a version of you that is who you want to be, and you can embody who the qualities of that person as well. If you kind of think about it that way, the person that's living the life that you want to live, what do they do? What are their values? What are they living day to day? You can kind of use that thought experiment too to really suss out who you need to be. So take your values, your identity, and figure out who you need to be for this particular role. And if you spend a long time, faking it for a while, it could just be that you try on a couple of different things for a while and see what feels comfortable and natural. That's not work to maintain that identity, and that feels like a fit, right? Sometimes you don't find the right clothes right away, and you have to try on multiple sets until you find something that feels right for you. And so I think that's the other thing I would say is, give yourself some grace on this, figuring this out, but recognize you need to figure out who's that CEO superhero that you need to be to build your business to the level you want it.
Yeah. Eric, and I appreciate you coming on. I mean, thinking about myself in other universes, I'm sorry, I started thinking about DC and Marvel stuff, bro. I'll be honest with you. But for those that are listening out there who has not found their identity and are not sure how to manage the chaos that's in and around their lives, where can they reach out to you and find you if they want to talk to you about these topics?
Yeah, so my website's the best place, willity.com. There's also a webinar on there if people want to get, an initial dive into this, how you build your business and really the 4 steps you need to take to streamline, optimize your business and get your identity and skill set aligned. So that's at willity.com/watch.
Nice, nice, nice. So again, Eric, I thank you very much for coming on the show, but I got to ask you my world famous question, the would you rather question, right? So, Eric, would you choose three doors or a fork in the road?
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do we is it clear, is it just random what the outcomes are, three different outcomes or two different outcomes, or do we know which thing leads which way?
So here it is with the question. There are zero parameters. It's all based off of your imagination. You're the superhero. If you
Huh,
want to fly it, you can. So it's your no parameters.
great. Well, I think I would pick the three doors. One of
Okay.
the three doors. I don't know why that's speaking to me. There is, you have three different options, 33% chance of some outcome. I was thinking about if you kind of know which ones are leading, I would rather have
hmm
more options than fewer options in
hmm
this case. So in this case, being able to choose from three different ways rather than potentially two extremes, there's maybe one middle ground. Sometimes you want to go an extreme route
hmm
and really put the pedal to the metal. Sometimes there's some middle ground where it doesn't have to be black and white.
hmm
And there's a kind of a middle ground solution that, helps in this case, from our topic of our conversation, a middle ground solution that allows you to build your business,
hmm
but not be a slave to your business, but allow you time with your kids, with your family, and being able to have both and not have to go, the extremes of either side.
So when you view these doors, do you have a picture in your mind? Can you describe the picture in your mind if you see these three doors? And here's the
They
reason
look
I'm
like three
asking.
doors.
Okay, and here's the reason I'm asking you because I had a guest who stated their three doors were transparent. They were acrylic. They were glass. So they could see
Ah,
what was behind it. As soon as I say it was no parameters, they're like, "Listen, I'm gonna make it the way I want it to be, so that way I could
yeah,
choose which door I want."
I know. I'm visualizing just a wall with three doors and open space behind it. So there's a lot of opportunity. And also just because you pick one door doesn't mean you have to stick with it forever.
Right.
A
Right.
lot of the times we assume that making a decision blocks off all other avenues.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it does. Sometimes you have to really invest and put your time and your energy into doing something. You need to go one route at full
Mm-hmm.
speed. But at the same time, a lot of people make the mistake that has to be all or nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's not a middle ground solution on doing it doing it a certain way. So or being able to do it for a while and then backtrack, because when you think about the success of most entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
and most people's success, it looks like a kind of a long and winding road where it's going
Mm-hmm.
up, it goes down, it swivels around. It's one of those things where the journey isn't just a straight line. It's not just one decision. And when we
Right.
talk about identity, the reason that I think, as we were talking about the alternate realities and your identity and who you like, what's the version of yourself that you want to embody,
Mm-hmm.
it shows up in the decisions like these three doors,
Right.
where with your identity lens, with that superhero identity, you're going to make a different decision. You might
Mm-hmm.
choose a different door when you're operating from that place with that identity
Mm-hmm.
than you would right now, right? If you don't have that identity of the successful CEO and entrepreneur that you are,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be to get to that level, you might make a different decision, right? You
Right.
might be
Right.
operating from a place of scarcity, of lack, of
Mm-hmm.
feeling like you're not good enough. But the CEO that is showing up in a powerful way, that is the one who's making decisions, knowing that they will be successful, that they will figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
that they're, whether or not they have it with them right now, that they have the ability to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
then you might choose a different door. And so that's
Mm.
why the identity is such an important piece, because you make thousands of decisions, hundreds of decisions, thousands of decisions every day, every week.
Right.
And the lens through which you make those decisions, sometimes they're split second decisions. It might be
Mm-hmm.
a decision about how you spend your time, how you spend the 5 minutes you have in between meetings, how you
Right.
spend, an upcoming hour block that you need to work on things. You're going to show up a different way. And those are the small things. It's not building your business isn't really about huge major decision. Sometimes it is, but it's usually rare that it's just one big decision you need to make, like these 3 doors. It's usually also thinking about the multiverse and like the brand new now that we're going down a rabbit hole and thinking about, how the alternate universe theories work, is that it's splits off every time you make a decision,
right?
Different decision, but there's thousands and millions of decisions that you make throughout building your business, and that's why the lens that you take, the identity that you take to make those decisions, both the small ones and the small day-to-day decisions, those all add up. Right. That's why the identity piece is cumulative, because it's the lens through which you make decisions, and it starts to add up over time.
Right. Well, I don't know what else to say, Eric. I mean, you've summed it all up very well, bro. I appreciate it, man. But, everybody, thank you for coming on the show today.
Great. Thank you so much, Maurice.
Sure. Thank you. And, of course, thank y'all for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. And I will talk to you a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?